Alex first met Ben at a coffee shop on a beautiful Monday morning in 1999. She was a 25-year-old nurse who came for a cup of coffee before her shift started at the local hospital, while Ben was there having a drink and taking a break from his usual business. He was a 28-year-old man who worked in finance. Their eyes met while she was picking up her drink from the counter, and she gave him a quick smile before going out the door. The next day, Alex was surprised to see Ben again at the same time. But this time, he started a conversation with her while she was waiting for her order. His piercing blue eyes and charming smile immediately made him likable. They chatted briefly about their jobs and the really warm weather outside. And then, while Alex was preparing to go to work, Ben casually suggested they meet for coffee again sometime. She was surprised by that, but she said yes. Over the next few weeks, Alex and Ben had a routine of having a morning coffee together every day. She really liked his way with words and his confident attitude about life. While he seemed genuinely interested in her work as a nurse and always had thoughtful questions about her day, Alex found Ben refreshingly different from other men she dated. He was mature, established in his career, and a seemingly kind person. After a month of coffee shop chatting, Ben finally asked Alex on a proper date. He took her to an upscale French restaurant for dinner. She was really impressed with his knowledge of nice wines and French cuisine. While they were sharing a chocolate souffle for dessert, Alex felt herself falling for Ben's sophisticated charm. That night ended with a kiss that left her giddy with excitement about him and their relationship. Their relationship moved quickly from there. Within 6 months, Alex and Ben were officially a couple in a serious relationship, and they spent most of their time together. He was buying her gifts all the time and took her on romantic dates. For her birthday, he surprised her with a weekend trip to a luxury spa resort. Alex never felt so cherished and adored. Then Ben decided to propose to her after a year of being together. He bought her a beautiful ring and asked her to marry him. She was thrilled when he showed her the ring and asked the question, and she instantly said yes. However, her friends and family expressed concern that this was moving too fast, and that maybe she needs to think this through before she decides to spend the rest of her life with Ben. But she brushed off their worries like it was nothing. She was certain that she found her soulmate, and she immediately started planning their wedding. They held their marriage ceremony in a vineyard in the summer of 2001. Alex looked beautiful in her wedding dress while she was walking down the aisle to her husband. In her vows, she spoke of her gratitude for finding such a loving partner and her excitement to build a life together. Ben's vows brought tears to their guests, and he promised to cherish and protect Alex until the end of their days. After the wedding, they bought a gorgeous big house in the suburbs and settled there. From the outside, they appeared to be the perfect couple. They were both young, attractive, successful, and deeply in love. Alex even decorated every room in the house to make it as cozy as possible. She wanted to turn their house into a loving family home, and Ben continued advancing in his finance career. He was working long hours in his firm, but he always made time to have romantic date nights with his wife. However, as the months passed, small cracks began to form in their flawless relationship. Alex noticed that Ben was changing and becoming more controlling towards her. He questioned her all the time about her male coworkers, and he didn't even like it when she was spending time with her friends. They started having arguments constantly. Some of them would even escalate into fights with Ben becoming enraged, and then he would abruptly end the fight and become very cold and distant to her. Alex did her best to smooth things over. She was telling herself that the stress of Ben's job was to blame for his mood swings and his bad behavior. She walked on eggshells, trying to anticipate what might set him off. But when things were good between them, Ben could still be incredibly charming and affectionate. That's why Alex held on to those moments and convinced herself that this was the real Ben, and that things would get better if she just tried harder to be a good wife. When their third wedding anniversary came in 2004, the tension in their home reached a breaking point. Ben became even more paranoid. He was accusing Alex of infidelity, even though he had no proof whatsoever. He was obsessively calling her on her phone and would become angry if she didn't answer him instantly. Alex felt constantly on edge because she never knew what would be the next thing that would trigger him. Then the night of July 15th started like many others. Alex prepared a nice dinner for them because she was hoping to get back some of the romance that was missing from their marriage. Ben arrived home late from work, already in a bad mood. and he barely acknowledged the meal Alex spent hours cooking. But instead, he interrogated her about a male patient she mentioned to him that she was caring for at the hospital. Alex was trying to explain that her relationship with the patient was purely professional and that she is a nurse who has to be close to patients in order to help them. It is part of her job. But Ben wouldn't listen to her at all. His face became red and he was riddled with rage. He accused her of lying, saying that he knew she was cheating on him. Alex begged him to calm down and listen to reason, but Ben was beyond rational thinking. Then all of a sudden, he grabbed an almost full bottle of wine from the dining room table and smashed Alex's head with it. She fell down to the floor and blood started coming from a cut on her head. Ben stood over her and stared at what he had done. Alex looked him in the eyes and for a moment thought that she saw a glimmer of remorse there. But then his expression changed and he became cold and predatory. Ben dragged Alex's semi-conscious body down to the basement while he was completely calm. He took duct tape and wrapped it around her wrists and ankles, while completely ignoring her cries for help. She was disoriented from the blow to her head and wasn't able to understand the nightmare happening around her. Ben went upstairs and returned a few minutes later with a variety of kitchen knives and other sharp tools. He changed out from his work clothes into a weird black robe with strange symbols on it. Alex felt her blood run cold as she realized the full extent of her husband's madness. "You betrayed me," Ben said in a chillingly emotionless voice. "Now you must be purified through sacrifice." Then what followed were hours of unimaginable torture. Ben was slowly cutting her body and carving out strange letters into Alex's flesh with surgical precision. She screamed in agony and cried out for help, but no one was there to hear her. Because Ben soundproofed his basement and barricaded it from the outside world. He took the bucket that was in the basement and put it next to her body so he could collect all of the blood that was dripping away from her. Then he raised his arms up in the air and started chanting in an unknown language like he was trying to summon someone. Alex screamed until her throat was raw. She was begging Ben to stop, but he seemed to get a perverse pleasure from her suffering. As Alex felt her life fading away, Ben stood beside her and tenderly stroked her hair, almost like he was caressing her. Then he whispered to Alex, "Soon it will be over, my dear. Your blood will open the gateway and I will ascend to my rightful place among the old ones." With a final brutal slash across her throat, Ben completed his grotesque ritual. He was stone cold while he watched as she took her last choking breaths. Alex died in that basement that night in an agonizing death that you wouldn't wish even for your worst enemies. She was naive enough to trust a sick man only because he said some nice words to her. That's why she paid the price with her life. And then when it was done, Ben meticulously cleaned himself and changed back into normal clothes, as if he was returning from a routine day at the office. Over the next week, Ben played the part of a worried and upset husband with Oscar-worthy skill. He reported Alex missing and even went to the local news station with tears in his eyes to beg people to search for her. He organized search parties and plastered the neighborhood with flyers of a missing person. All the while, Alex's mutilated corpse was lying hidden in a corner of the basement, carefully wrapped in a plastic bag. But Ben's facade began to crumble when police started questioning him in great detail about his whereabouts at the time of her disappearance. Detectives noted inconsistencies in his story and the evasive way he answered certain questions. One neighbor even reported hearing screams coming from the house on the night Alex disappeared, but he said that he thought those screams were only a movie playing on the TV, which is why he didn't even think to call the police. Then, armed with a search warrant, investigators rushed to Ben's house. At first, the house seemed normal, but then they discovered a hidden basement that was protected with a massive chain around the entrance door. They immediately broke through the door and saw one of the most gruesome scenes imaginable. There was blood everywhere, with pentagrams and weird letters drawn all over the walls. In the corner, they found Ben's blood-stained robe and the knives he used in the killing, along with the mutilated body of his wife stuffed away in a plastic bag. In the end, they also found Ben's journals detailing his descent into occult obsession and his plans to sacrifice his wife in a sick desire for supernatural power. When confronted with the evidence, Ben finally broke. He started ranting about dark gods and mystical gateways, claiming his wife's death was a necessary step in his ascension to godhood. Mental health experts who evaluated Ben diagnosed him as a malignant narcissist with sociopathic tendencies, noting his complete lack of empathy or remorse. The following trial captivated the nation. Ben's defense team attempted to defend him with bouts of insanity, but prosecutors successfully portrayed him as a calculating killer who had methodically planned his wife's murder. After deliberating for less than 2 hours, the jury returned with a guilty verdict on all counts. Ben was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. In the years since the murder, true crime enthusiasts went over every detail of the case, debating Ben's motives and mental state. Some see him as a high-functioning sociopath who used occult trappings to satisfy his sadistic urges. Others believe he was genuinely insane and lost in a world of dark fantasy. Whatever the truth is, the tragic story of Alex and Ben serves as a reminder that monsters can hide behind charming smiles and loving words.